All right, guys, here we are in the jungles of Costa Rica. After 10 years, we first visited from New York City and we had the most amazing trip. It was the first time that Costica and I actually took a trip together, and we came here and it was paradise. And we wanted to live here back then, but it was impossible. We had jobs, we had debt, we were still in school. It wouldn't have worked out. Now we're actually living here in Costa Rica. We have a residency in Panama, and our life looks completely different in the last 10 years. So in this video, we're going to talk to you about our transformation from going broke college student to financially free business owner traveling the world. Huge transformation. Let's break it down for you guys. Before we get started in how we've achieved exactly what we've achieved now, we have to go all the way back to the beginning when Costica and I met in New York. I was going to school at FIT. He graduated from architecture school and started at Coach, the corporation, first corporate job. And when we met, he had his life pretty much completely set up. He had a new apartment, he met me, and he got a new job all in the same week. So everything just fell into place for him. We were cumulatively about $150,000 in debt from student loans and business debt. So we didn't exactly know what we wanted to do as far as careers went. We wanted to start a business together, so that's what we did. We started the 3D printed high heels, and that business did not pan out the way that we expected it would. Wasted a lot of time and a lot of money. But we did learn how to run a business, and there were a lot of benefits to attempting to run a business, even though we made a lot of mistakes. That is ultimately what set us up to pivot into a service-based business, which is what financially freed us. We'll get into how we actually made that transition to what the turning point was, and then we'll get into how our life looks now, which is still challenging, but it's definitely rewarding too. The most important thing you can do at the beginning of your journey is getting your financial house in order, and there's 3 easy steps to doing that. Number 1 is trying to make as much money as you possibly can. So some ideas here would be getting a second job, starting a side hustle, starting a business if it's a certain type of business where it's actually easy, unlike the business we did where it was more of a financial drain. There are so many ways to hustle and try to make more money. That's definitely the first priority you should have. But not to overlook step number 2, which is saving as much money as you can. There's a lot of ways to eliminate the biggest expense most people have, which is rent, by renting a place that has roommates. That's what we did in New York. You could also try to buy a place and rent out the rooms, house hacking. There's so many ways to utilize, saving strategies here on rent. You could even consider van life, but that's a little more adventurous. I wouldn't have done that when I lived in the city. There's ways to eliminate, food expenses. Obviously, cooking more is going to save you money and be healthier in general. There's also ways to refinance student loans, super important. There's just so many strategies you can utilize to save money. Credit cards, rewards, points every time you go on a trip. Endless possibilities here. The third step, to invest as much money as you can in pre-tax accounts. So you can do 401ks, you can do Roth IRAs, things like that. Really beneficial. That's it for the early phases of what we did to set ourselves up for this huge transformation. The next part is actually the most important part in determining if moving abroad is right for you and you're actually ready to move abroad. So let's get into the next point. Now that brings us to the turning point. How do you know that you're ready to move abroad, that you are completely done with the stress, the burnout, just living to work instead of working to live? How do you know it's the right time? For us, the time came when we were in Portland, Oregon in 2020. The COVID problem happened. We didn't know what to do, but we knew that we were sick of everything that we were doing. We didn't have a massive amount of money in savings. Actually, our net worth had just hit 0. We were feeling like it was time to go, and we were ready to risk it all. That's exactly what we did. The whole year in 2020, I planned everything from restructuring our business to taxes to how to move our life abroad, where we were gonna live. We figured out that the best place that we could go was Mexico for 6 months. So that's exactly what we did. We spent the whole year and then we went to Mexico for 6 months. Costica's job actually gave him permission to move to Mexico. One of the first ways we realized the universe was actually aligning with us and what we were doing. So we didn't have to really worry about, is this gonna work out? Because it already started working out. And after 2 years, Costica quit his job and we started our business. Let's get into the next step, which is when you're actually starting your own business and you're actually thinking, this is a lifestyle for me. How do I do this forever? Now we're going to talk about what our life looks like right now. Since we moved abroad, it's been still really challenging because you have to figure out how to get your new life in order. One of the things that most Americans probably don't realize is you can't just live wherever you want. You can be on a tourist visa and bounce around and travel for a few months here and a few months there, but you actually need to apply for residency, and that process can be really expensive and take a really long time. Getting citizenship in other countries is also not easy and takes a really long time. Banking abroad could be challenging for Americans. There's just so many things to think about beyond just like, I'm sick of America, let's leave, that you have to kind of figure out. The first step that we did, we went to Mexico as long as we could without getting a visa. And then we decided we actually needed to stay put somewhere because we were both working full-time and it was impossible to travel and work full-time like that, at least in the beginning. We got a residency in Panama, which meant we had to open a Panamanian corporation, deposit $5,000 into the company, and we also had to have a bank account in Panama and get our driver's license in Panama. That allowed us to get residency within 6 months. It went from temporary to permanent residency, and now we can live and work in Panama whenever we want, for as long as we maintain our residency, which means we have to visit Panama one day every 2 years. There are rules and challenges that come with these programs because some have significant investments. Panama was actually the lowest investment of any country at that time. The rules have changed since then, so now I don't even know what the investment options are. I do know that these rules are constantly changing and they are, in a lot of places, getting harder. That's definitely something to think about when you're starting this journey. You really don't want to get too many residencies because you could end up wasting a lot of money and it could dictate where you're traveling. Like, for example, in Dubai, if you get residency, you have to visit once every 6 months to maintain that. And I wouldn't want to have to maintain it like that. That's already very hard. And if you have Dubai residency and Panamanian residency in Europe and you have to travel and fly around, it starts to become a lot of maintenance to actually make these things work. You have to think about these things and structure them carefully. Banking offshore is also a challenge. You have to report FATCA, so you have to report all of your offshore bank accounts that are cumulatively more than $10,000. An easy enough problem, but the penalties are steep if you don't comply. After we got our residency in Panama, I focused on getting second citizenship in Europe because I am 4th generation Croatian and I was actually able to apply for my passport. If you are interested in applying for your passport, we will be launching an EU citizenship course soon. I'm not sure if it'll be live by the time that you're seeing this video, but if it is, the link will be down in the description and maybe it'll be available for pre-order by then. The other thing that we're going to be doing is helping Americans navigate this process of moving abroad because it can be complicated, it can be stressful, and there are a lot of mistakes that you can make along the way that can cost you tens of thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. You really don't want to make these mistakes. We made a couple of them and had to learn the hard way. That's what we're here for, to help share with you guys all the mistakes that we're making so that you can navigate this way easier and get closer to living your dream life as soon as possible. That being said, you know, I barely scratched the surface on all the challenges that you can face as an expat or an American trying to relocate and move abroad. And like I said, we will have courses for both moving abroad and getting EU citizenship. We're going to link them here if they're ready. If they're not ready and they're just available for pre-sale, then that's okay too. But we will keep, if you guys don't want to buy the courses, we will keep sharing information, as much information as we can on the whole process and what we're doing. But we're also just living our lives and having fun now. So that's the plan. Our next stop, well, we haven't announced where our next stop is yet, so I'll save that for another video. But it's going to be completely different than what we're doing right now, and it's going to be really fun. Look, there's a monkey taking a nap.